It all started with a homebrew. During my junior year at the University of Vermont, a good buddy of mine, Matt Robinson, invited me over one day to try out his homebrew. I said, sure, come over, try out some of your homebrew. I went over to his apartment and he cracked open a couple of brews, poured them up, and I had a sip. And I was like, wow, this is really good, man. This is better than anything you can buy in the store. I bought a kit, I got a glass carboy, and I got some ingredients for a beer that I wanted to try to brew, which was something like the early Catamount maple wheat. So my very first homebrew was a maple wheat beer, and a couple of weeks later Matt and I were cooking up my first batch of homebrew in a little apartment down at the end of Lafayette Place up in Burlington, Vermont. And that's where my love and passion for brewing all began.
Well, very early on in our marriage, home brewing was always a huge part of Sean's life, and there's a great group of local guys here in the Valley that got together at least once a week to homebrew together, and then once every summer there was this huge homebrew party, and you know, that continued, and really those homebrew guys said, Sean, this beer is something that you really should make a go of it and you should sell it. And Sean was like, really? You think so? And absolutely.
But I never saw back then home brewing or brewing as a career. Saw it more as something fun. I enjoy beer, but I didn't really feel like that was my calling in life. But as time went on and my career matured and my homebrewing continued to improve, friends and family kept saying, wow, this stuff is really good. Can I buy some? And I'm like, I just make 2 cases at a time. Here's a couple of bottles to enjoy.
And so Sean came to me and said, what do you think? And Sean said, let's start small, 1 barrel. And I fully supported him, his family, his parents fully supported him. And
a real labor of love. Friends and I built the small building. It took us about 1.5 years, so really the idea was hatched, and I started to pursue the idea in 2006. And that summer is when we put up the shell of the building in a weekend in kind of a barn raising style event, which was a lot of fun. But once everyone left, then of course it took me nearly 1.5 years to finish up the rest of the building, to get the doors and the windows and the walls done, and start to pull together enough money to buy a small set of brewing equipment. I started out with a 1-barrel system, which is just 31 gallons of beer at a time. I like to joke that it was really just a glorified home brewing, really a licensed home brewing operation. So I got licensed to brew and sell beer out of this small outbuilding right next to my house in Warren, Vermont. And again, that was back in January of 2008 was when we finally got our licensure together.
so for Lawson's Finest, first 8 years in business, it was just Sean and I as employees. We did everything. And for part of that, we also held our own full-time jobs on the side and raised a family. So looking back, it's really phenomenal at our bandwidth to be able to manage and grow a business, and it wasn't until 8 years into the business that we hired our first employee. And then our 9th year, we hired 2 more employees, and in our 10th year, we hired 38 employees. We basically exploded overnight. And what was really phenomenal was that Sean and I were a part of the interview process for every single one of our employees. And we truly are a mom and pop business, and once we grew to 40 employees, that mom and pop grew to a family.
So I walk in here to the tap room, and I walk into the brewery, and almost every day I'm like, wow, you know, how did we get here? And from, you know, just a guy that makes homebrew to, you know, running this is a real business enterprise with, you know, over 50 employees that work for us now. and a place for the public to gather 7 days a week. So, wow, how did this all come together so wonderfully from very humble beginnings, and really it's because of a lot of hard work, passion, pursuit of quality, and a focus on our core values of communicating with transparency, always telling people the real story. So pursuing those core values, I think, and a lot of sweat equity got us to where we are today.
And now we're a family of over 50 employees who really care about each other, and we work so well together. And it was so important for us in that interview process to hire people that held the same values that we do as a business, and to be able to educate our employees so that when customers come to our tap room and retail store, they're going to receive the same guest experience as if Sean and I were providing that to them ourselves.